Perhaps one of the most famous unsolved cases is the murder of Jill Dando. The former Crimewatch presenter was shot dead at age 37 outside her flat in Fulham, West London in 1999, and it still hasn't been solved today. Dando was a famous figure on television in the UK and had actually previously experienced being stalked by an obsessed fan. According to the London Weekly Observer, just 2 weeks before her death, the person who identified themselves as a Serb reached out to Dando. This individual expressed disapproval of her public appeal for help regarding Kosovan Albanian refugees. Born in Weston-super-Mare, she began her journalism career at the Western Mercury newspaper and had worked there for many years. Dando began her career with the BBC in the mid-80s, where she contributed to the BBC Radio Devon and worked on the Spotlight programme in Plymouth. Her talent and dedication quickly became evident, leading her to transition from regional television to more prominent national programmes in London by the late 1980s. During this time, she gained significant recognition for her work on breakfast television, the 6 p.m. news, and popular shows like Holiday and Songs of Praise. Dando reportedly attempted to inform her colleagues about a paedophile ring at the BBC that included big-name celebrities, according to a former co-worker. It's claimed that she communicated this information to higher management in the mid-1990s, but for some unknown reason, no investigation was conducted. The year before her death, Dando became involved in a campaign aimed at helping expose or catch paedophiles. She'd been threatened with death before, which led to the BBC going into lockdown with armed guards stationed at their centre in London. Jill, in the years before she was murdered, had attempted to expose the history of sexual abuse and child molestation involving some of the biggest names in TV, but her concerns were often dismissed and overlooked. The BBC has faced serious backlash due to paedophilia scandals after many individuals came forward to share their experiences of abuse by the disgraced TV presenter Jimmy Savile, who was associated with the BBC. Recently, Rolf Harris was sentenced to prison for his involvement in the sexual abuse of children, and police have made additional arrests of unnamed TV personalities connected to these allegations. A year before her death, Dando became involved in a campaign aimed at exposing paedophiles once again. Fellow BBC presenter Sally Jones mentioned that while she was alive, Dando had to deal with sexual and physical harassment from numerous people at the BBC on a daily basis. Just days before Jill was murdered, British forces conducted airstrikes, and shortly after her death it was revealed that the former head of BBC News, Tony Hall, received a call from a man with an Eastern European accent who said, "Your Prime Minister here. They butchered innocent young people. We butcher back." Dando was shot in the head. Just once. Neighbours found her slumped against her front door in a pool of blood. A blue Range Rover that had been parked on the street where Jill lived, Gower Avenue, was captured on CCTV driving away at speed from the murder scene. The murder prompted an enormous inquiry by Scotland Yard and resulted in unemployed loner Barry George being jailed for her murder in July 2001. It was granted a retrial on appeal and received a unanimous acquittal by a jury in August 2008 after a retrial. Despite his acquittal and release from prison, George has not received any compensation. In 2010, the Ministry of Justice rejected a £1.4 million compensation claim for his wrongful imprisonment for Jill Dando's murder. So, the theories that have been bandied around this case have included a jilted lover. In the early stages of the investigation, rumours began to swirl around Ms. Dando's love life and the possibility that she was murdered by a former lover. Following her murder, her personal life was subject to scrutiny, with detectives analysing her phone calls and diaries and interviewing countless friends and acquaintances. Ultimately, each of the men who had formed romantic relationships with the presenter was swiftly ruled out of the investigation. There was also talk of a Serbian hit. Just 48 hours after Jill was killed, the theory appeared that TV presenter was killed by a Serbian hitman. We spoke of the phone call that Tony Hall received. 20 days before her death, she had presented a Kosovo crisis appeal that had raised more than £1 million in 24 hours in support of those refugees fleeing the Balkans. Days before the murder, NATO bombed a TV station in Serbia, killing 16 employees. Jill's agent, John Roseman, said, "We had a lot of mail, but not usually threatening. Then we received a letter that mentioned the appeal she had given earlier that month for Kosovo. It seemed to be somewhat threatening." The BBC received a phone threat within hours of the murder from an unidentified man with an Eastern European sounding accent. "Tell your Prime Minister, in Belgrade 15 people were killed, so 14 more to go." The day after, another caller with the same accent said, "Yesterday I called to tell you to add a few more numbers to that list. Your government, Prime Minister Blair, butchered 17 innocent young people who work like makeup artists, electrical, technical engineers, and these type of people. He butchered, we butcher back. The first one you had yesterday. The next one will be..." Then BBC News Chief Executive Tony Hall. There was also talk of underworld crime gangs. One common theory was that she was murdered by a professional hitman in revenge for her work as a Crimewatch presenter. During the police investigation, detectives discounted up to 30 people who had reason to resent the crime program, while convicted contract killers were visited in prison for information. It was also thought mistaken identity could have played a part in Jill Dando's murder. A fresh theory emerged in 2022 during the court case of French former elite model agency boss Gerald Marie. Papers submitted to a Paris court alleged Marie wanted undercover female journalist Lisa Brinkworth dealt with for exposing his firm. In 1998, Lisa had been sent to join the giant modelling agency and covertly film for a BBC programme called McIntyre Undercover. When the programme aired, Marie sued and the company had to pay $1.7 million in damages. Even though Barry George was wrongly imprisoned for the murder, it has long been suspected that the 38-year-old Jill Dando died at the hands of a professional assassin. The Metropolitan Police have not been able to crack the case in almost a decade since George's release. The Met Police said in a recent statement, the Metropolitan Police Service fully investigated the circumstances into the murder of Jill Dando. 2 trials took place. Investigation was subject to an internal review. The idea that she might have known too much is not far-fetched, but it seems likely she would have shared that information with someone, whether it be a colleague or whoever else. Someone should have been made aware of it. Was this possibility really not taken into consideration during the investigation?